Naoya Inoue stops TJ Doheny at the beginning of the 7th round. So a number of us thought that Inoue would stop Doheny within 6. We were off literally by about 10 seconds. Now a number of analysts have said, hey, he did it via his body shots. And while the body shots may be the punches that actually stopped Doheny right at the end, it was really two other factors that had Naoya win this fight. Now the first skill that Naoya employed was distance control. And in my pre-fight breakdown of TJ Doheny, I noticed that Doheny has a sort of odd use of distance. TJ either wants to be way on the outside, meaning way outside of even punching range, or he wants to be way on the inside. But he does not try to spend any time in that middle distance, which is truly boxing and punching distance. So the way Doheny stays way on the outside is, remember, he's southpaw, so he extends his jab hand, which is his right hand, in kind of a pawing motion at the air. I really hesitate to call it a true jab because, in my opinion, a jab means you intend to hit something. And what Doheny's doing is he's so far out of range, he's not even hitting his opponent's glove. He's just pawing at the air. Now, while that does serve a purpose, let's say you're trying to work your way inside and you just want to occupy air as you move inside, to stay at that distance and continue to make that motion, in my opinion, is somewhat a wasted energy. So at best, what TJ does is he'll kind of do the patty cake touch gloves things with his opponent, particularly if they're an orthodox fighter. They've got their left hand extended, so it's as if they're both just punching each other's glove, just barely touching. But for the most part, TJ's opponents have afforded him that distance and just kept their glove and their feet like far enough away so there's at least 6 inches to a foot between Doheny's fist and his opponent's fist. So then what Doheny does is he actually uses that distance to his advantage because he looks for an opening or a pause in his opponent, and then he just charges straight down the middle line with straight at his opponent, and that's how he generates his power, particularly with his overhand left. By having such a greater distance between his own body and his opponent's body, TJ is able to accelerate towards his opponent. Remember, if we're talking momentum equals mass times velocity, he's able to hit a higher velocity because he's got more distance, he's got a longer runway to accelerate down, and so then when he does make impact and collide with his opponent, there's more momentum behind his punch. He's able to generate a little more force. So TJ's figured out how to make that work for him in that particular scenario. And then what he does, whether he lands the punch or he doesn't land the punch, if it doesn't drop his opponent, now he's smashed right into his opponent, so he'll tangle them up. He'll make it what we call, a chippy fight, whether somebody is grasping and hitting with a free hand. It's sort of a ugly, dirty boxing fight on the inside for TJ, and he seems comfortable at that distance. But if you look at TJ's previous fights, he really doesn't spend much time at all at that mid-range distance. Now here's where Inoue's brilliance comes into play, because what he did was he did not afford TJ that super way on the outside distance. Instead of extending his jab hand, as most of TJ's opponents do, what Inoue did was right at the beginning of round 1, from the first bell, he held his jab hand at kind of a 90-degree angle. So sort of a classic boxing guard stance with his right fist kind of glued to his chin and his left arm extended at shoulder height and then forearm extended upwards towards the ceiling. And so now, this got TJ to jab at Naoya's forearm. So already, TJ's closing the distance for himself. See the brilliance there? And they did play that sort of back and forth game, but it was mostly TJ expending energy jabbing at nothing in effect, because he's not really trying to land that punch with bad intentions. Naoya would either just parry the jab with his open palm, or come over top, or kind of circle around it. Now, take a look at Inoue's guard at the beginning of the second round. Now he brings his left fist a little bit closer to his head. It's not a double full guard yet, but his arm is more in a V shape, and so his elbow has dropped down, and his fist is maybe 6 inches away from his temple. So now Doheny's still doing that habit that he's so used to, which is jab at my opponent's jab hand. And again, now Naoya's drawn TJ in even closer without having to expend any energy. All he did was adjust his left hand position. Now take a look at Inoue's guard position at the opening of the third round. Now he's adopting that high double guard position. So both fists are kind of glued to his forehead. So now that forces Doheny to come even closer if he wants to touch Inoue's jab hand. So this is, I think, an absolutely brilliant tactic on Team Inoue, because he's expended zero energy on his own part to lure Doheny in. It's as if he let his jab hand be the lure, and now he's reeling him in over 3 rounds. So already by the third round, he's got Doheny much closer than Doheny really wants to be, but Doheny's so conditioned himself to that habit of let me jab at my opponent's jab hand that he can't help himself, so to speak. Now, throughout these first 3 rounds, notice how active Inoue's feet are. He's got very live feet, meaning he's always on the balls of his feet. He doesn't waste any energy just bouncing straight up and down, as I see some rookie fighters do. But what he does is when Doheny does throw his hard shots, like Doheny will fake with that left pawing or that jab pawing motion, and then try to level change down to throw a straight left at the body. Well, when Inoue sees that coming, he just kind of bounces back a little bit and then bounces right back into position to counter. Also, by Inoue having those live feet and being able to shift or move directions in a very relaxed manner, that kind of dissipates the force of TJ Doheny's punches. But you'll see throughout the fight, that's what Inoue does. He just kind of bounces back a little bit and then comes right back into position for his own punching range. Now, the second and really key factor that Inoue used throughout the entire fight was his ring generalmanship. And by that, what I mean is that he puts Doheny where he wants him in that ring. For the majority of this fight, Inoue has TJ with his back towards the ropes. He's got TJ on the perimeter and he's hunting him down. So when TJ tries to escape by moving laterally to TJ's right or his left, it doesn't matter which way he moves, because Inoue is going to eventually cut him off in that corner. Either, Doheny's you're gonna hit a corner one way or the other. Doesn't matter which way you move. I think I mentioned this also in the pre-fight breakdown, that Doheny doesn't really work angles much, so he just doesn't have that skill set to angle out and circle out and kind of reverse positions on Inoue. So this is very, I think, mentally draining as well, because if you're the one that's being hunted and you don't really want to be against the ropes, or you don't really want to be trapped in the corner, but you're trying to get this relentless pressure off of you, it's very sort of mentally taxing. Whereas notice how little energy Inoue is expending as he's quote-unquote pursuing TJ. In a way, TJ's doing it to himself, right? Because he's putting himself at an uncomfortable position by jabbing at Inoue's jab hand. And also, at this distance, that puts Doheny right in the sweet spot for Inoue to fire off his hard shots. Now, I also mentioned in the pre-fight breakdown that Inoue always seems to slip or avoid punches by leaning over at his waist and bending to his left, which is sort of the easier way to avoid a punch, right? Because you're just letting gravity pull your upper body down. The problem is he never, or very rarely, slips to his right. just to mix it up and to maybe confuse or trick his opponents. And I think that habit really was somewhat fatal against a guy like Inoue, who's got a very strong right. Because anytime TJ would bend over at the waist, especially if he's against the ropes and trapped, now Inoue just has to fire a hard right hand, kind of a hybrid body shot uppercut. Because with TJ bent over, it doesn't really, I don't think Inoue cares what he's hitting, because he knows he's going to hit something, whether it's TJ's body or his head, because he's bent over so much. Notice also that in rounds 2, 3, 4, and I think maybe even 5 or 6, Inoue always ends the round with Doheny trapped in the corner. And at the end of the 5th and 6th rounds, Inoue was really able to unload a series of punches, a series of hard punches that went unanswered by TJ. This is not only doing the physical damage, but it's sending a mental message to TJ also. It's like, hey, I've got you, you're stuck here, you can't do anything to stop this onslaught. Now, another sort of interesting mind game Inoue did was, I think it was either the 4th or 5th round, Inoue got in a position where he was towards the corner, so he put himself in the corner and kind of waited to see if Doheny would come in. And Doheny didn't, so Inoue just slowly, used his small steps and made his way out of the corner. But again, I think this is also like a mind game, because it's like he's saying, hey, now it's your turn. You've got me in the corner. What are you gonna do? And Doheny's like, no, I'm not gonna pursue that. So it's like Inoue wins that mental chess game again. It's almost like saying, hey, you know what? I gave you a chance to try to beat the crap out of me, and you didn't want to do it. So what's up with that? Well, in that case, I'm gonna come after you again. So I think at the end of the 6th round, Inoue threw and landed maybe about 10 to 12 punches in a row, and TJ didn't fire anything back. So, I mean, he was already pretty much beaten at that point. It was almost gratuitous that TJ Doheny came out for the 7th, because, I mean, literally within seconds, he's got his back against the ropes. Inoue fires off a few hard shots, and Doheny just concedes by like kind of waving to the ref like, no, I'm done. He said in that little short video that's probably all over the YouTube, something about it was a muscle under his rib or above his hip, and he didn't have any feeling in his leg, which is kind of what it looked like from the way he sort of limped away from the ropes and was limping out of the ring back to the change room. Now, some folks are surely going to say, oh, he quit, this was rigged. I don't think this was rigged. Only TJ knows in his heart if he quit. But I tend to think he was just done. He didn't have anything more to give. If you look at some of his other fights, especially against Sam Goodman, I mean, goodness gracious, this TJ is not a quitter. I mean, he took a lot of punishment versus Sam Goodman and stuck in there. So that leads us to, I guess the next question is, what's next for Naoya Inoue? Well, Mr. Bob Arum announced that he'll fight one more time in Japan before the end of the year, and then he's going to come to Las Vegas for quote-unquote a big celebration. So that sounds like he's not going to fight in the United States, which does make sense. There's not really any reason for Naoya Inoue to come to the U.S. to fight when he can sell out the Tokyo Dome. Remember, the Tokyo Dome holds 60,000 people. Madison Square Garden holds about 20,000. T-Mobile Arena, also 20,000. The MGM Grand, about 17,000. I think the only arena that's a lot bigger would be Wembley Stadium with, over 90,000 people. Even the O2 is 20,000 people. So if Naoya can sell out 60,000 at home, why would he travel abroad? That makes no sense. Second, if Naoya were to come to the United States, wouldn't it mostly make sense for him to fight an American fighter? Is he going to travel all the way to the U.S. to fight somebody who's a non-American, when they could just bring the non-American to Japan? I mean, after all, he is the undisputed champion, so typically the challenger has to come to the champion. It'll be interesting to see who they match up with Inoue before the end of the year. It would be great if it was Sam Goodman or, sorry, I can't remember the name of the Eastern European fighter, but they're ranked a little bit higher than TJ Doheny. I think they most definitely deserve a shot. So I hope the fight to close out 2024 with Naoya Inoue is a meaningful fight. And then we can see in 2025 if he chooses to stay at 122 or he decides he wants to move up to 126. But if Naoya Inoue were to move up to 126 next year in 2025, who would you like to see him fight? What do you think is a logical progression for him to make his way through the 126 division? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you know when our next breakdown video drops. If you enjoyed lively discussions about boxing, also please consider joining our membership side. We do have some members-only content and members-only polls, and members always have early access to content. Finally, if you're interested in merch, you can look right below this video. Unfortunately, the merch only shows up in black and white. I'm not sure why, but if you go to Spreadshop and find Hamaguchi Fight Shop, you can see there's almost 200 items, all different colors, with the same logo on it. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you the next time.